What's going on, y'all? Eric Muldrow here with Code Red Conversations. Got a great show for you today. We're going to start off with some newly released body cam footage of the Austin shooter. We're going to go into some details. We're going to jump onto an additional story where we address three minors who will be getting charged or who have been charged as adults for a heinous crime. We'll be discussing the details and hearing from their parents. So you're going to want to stick around for that. We're going to talk about a recent conversation on the Joe Rogan Experience where he had Steve-O from Jackass fame and he y'all from, I'm thinking it was the late 90s, early 2000s days where show on MTV where people just do stunts, but they get into a very interesting conversation on the transgender issue. And then we'll wrap it up with a couple additional topics. But let's jump right into the main story, this body cam footage. Y'all just hearing this, the details, listening to this is very, very chilling. And we're going to watch some of it and we're going to do our best to skirt some of the social media censors to the best of our ability. So bear with me. Check this out.
7-9-yard additional shots being fired. Additional shots being fired. I was to the west. I was to the west. Those shots were on the on West Avenue. The thing is AR-15. AR-15 or what?
You hear them discussing that an AR 15 was being deployed, that the suspect was in possession of an AR 15. If you watch the full details, if you go to Forbes Breaking News, or it's all over YouTube now, the full video of the press conference by the chief of police, but he was in possession of a handgun. He made some shots as he drove by, and then he parked his vehicle, got out with an AR 15, a long gun, and started engaging random citizens.
Street. Fired one round. West House. Black sweater, black camera. I'm on the topic. Move to now on the street. And left.
And look at that. Let me just back up a second here. Look at what I'm not sure what this, probably closed circuit camera. That's him right there. And watch what's coming up next.
And this is a pedestrian that was walking by.
Random pedestrian. I'm not sure if he engaged him, but they blurred it out and they stopped it right there. So I would guess that this individual was gunned down as well. He seemed to be totally unaware. Like, obviously, who would expect that when you're hanging out, you're trying to enjoy a nice night out on the town? Who would expect someone to walk up and just start shooting? Now, I think nowadays you just have to be of the mindset where anything is possible. Those are my beliefs. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. But considering where we are in our society, we opened the border, allowed tens of millions potentially of individuals into our country, over 2 million people who, what they call gotaways, who came into our country completely unidentified. So, and there have also been a number of attempted terrorist incidents that have been spoiled by local police or by the feds, FBI in particular. So God only knows who's in this country waiting for an opportunity. And with our conflict going on in Iran, this individual felt extra motivated to get involved and to wreak some havoc.
Second video is our Halo surveillance. That is our high activity location observation. And this is throughout downtown, at least that 6th Street area. We were able to capture this. And the red circle there is going to be, this is after he parked the vehicle and as he's walking eastbound on 6th Street toward the officers. This is what that's going to show.
You see people ducking and hiding because he's already shooting. We won't show every bit of detail of the footage, but I'll show as much as I can. We'll see multiple angles of body cam footage here shortly.
Is that it for that one, Rudy? Interact here. Okay.
Speed up a bit. There's the police. During the press conference, the chief of police, or whatever her title is, said that police officers arrived on the scene in less than a minute. And just looking at the way they're dressed, if it's anything like we do here in Vegas, if we have areas that are highly frequented by citizens, like our downtown area or the Strip, you'll often see a large police presence. So it more than likely, I think this happened in one of their bar areas or maybe a downtown area, and which was allowed for a much quicker response, which enabled them to get there and take out this threat before it could have gotten even worse. Yeah, he went down there.
The next video will be body-worn camera from Officer 1.
Went down there to take him into custody or do whatever. And they never know if he's dead or not.
Hey, I'm with you. I'm with you. Go! Everybody go! 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 Where is he? Right there, right there. Shots fired, one down. Light sweater, light camera.
Next video is from Officer 2's body-worn camera.
One more angle.
This was an officer that was on West Street.
On the ground! Where is it? Where is it? Over there. He's on 6th Street. Where is it? Where is it? Who shot?
He's down on the ground. Won't allow the camera to get any closer. At least I won't, because I don't want YouTube to censor me. But man, I'm telling you something. I don't often miss being a police officer. I enjoyed my time out there, no doubt about it. But it was most of the job is very tedious. Let's just call it for what it is. You do a lot of paperwork calls, boring most of the time. But when things get busy, it can get really, really busy. And I think that's largely dependent on what jurisdiction you're in. But and here in Vegas, things could get really crazy really quickly. It can go from nothing. Sorry, I'm turning on my Instagram at the same time. It can go from absolutely nothing happening to utter chaos in a drop of a hat. But when I see situations like this, just watching that video, I had chills, because what do you see in our modern society, and things have kind of shifted in more recent years, but maybe not. If you look at the entire police law enforcement umbrella, you consider ICE as well. There's always that element of people who look at law enforcement negatively, who want to make them out to be the bad guy. And it happens every time there's a Republican in office. It's guaranteed. You're guaranteed to see it. And this time around is no different. A few years ago, during Trump's first term, there was a lot of hatred and villainization, I should say, for law enforcement. George Floyd, it got to the point, it got so bad to where they took Pound Patrol, a cartoon, off TV. And they took the decades long running television show Cops, they took it off TV because there was so much negativity, largely false allegations against law enforcement as a whole. They took one bad incident, which as time went on, we found out there was a lot more going on than simply, oh, this officer who was racially motivated killed a black man. We found out that there was way more going on. But right now, I think we're still dealing with a little bit of that. But I would say overall, the mindset or the public opinion of cops have changed a bit. Again, if we're not considering the entire situation going on with ICE. If you take that into consideration, things haven't changed because there's always an element on the left, progressives, liberals, in particularly progressives who hate law enforcement. That will always be there. But I think that there's also a pretty good element of people who really, I think the vast majority, vast majority of citizens who really love and appreciate law enforcement and understand the role that they play in society. And videos like this are a prime example. When all chaos is breaking down, breaking loose, and the world is running away from the threat, the good cop, is running right towards it, ready to respond. And let me tell you something. If you felt that you were called to be a cop, I don't know how to say it any differently. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like being one of the few people in our society who has the mindset and the drive to go in there and with the focus and the intent to end whatever threat it may be. And I'm talking about whether it's a deadly threat or it could be something that's minor. But when all chaos is going on around you and you know that you're there for a purpose, then the world appreciates law enforcement as a whole. Again, I think the majority of people really appreciate us, understand our role in society, and at the same time, they may look at us a little weird and be like, man, I don't know if I could trust these guys 100%. And I get it, because some officers, there's always an idiot cop who does something stupid. You'll never get rid of that completely, because we're dealing with sinful, flawed human beings. And there's always an element of that in every aspect of society. But when it comes down to the job, I think the world here, I'll say at least here in the States, most people really appreciate what it is that cops do. Got a comment here I'm going to just put up on the screen. Night shift here in Vegas and many areas are pretty busy daily. I'm on Russell and Mount Vista. Oh, Russell and Mount Vista. Okay. Is that still the Northeast area? I don't know how the sector beats have switched up lately, or the area commands, I should say. I'm on Russell and Mount Vista, and us residents. Oh, you're a citizen. Nightly live with sounds of sirens and helicopters. Let me tell you something. Night shift, especially if you're living in closer to some of the areas that are the hood, night shifts as far as cops is almost always busy. Again, it depends on what area you're living in, or if you're a cop, what area you're patrolling in. I thought you were an officer right off the top of my head. I'm sorry. But let's go into a bit more detail on this guy because, and I know there's a lot going on in the world, and I know it's easy to forget things. Things are they're back and forth, they're in and out when it comes to news stories. Every time you every time you turn around, there's something new to talk about, especially with Trump in office. There's never a dull moment. But let's go into a little bit more detail on this individual and see who he is, or was, I should say. Hopefully, you can see that. Let me know if you can or cannot. I'm going to read it to you if you can't. So, either way, you should be fine. One second. I appreciate you being patient with me. Austin 6th Street shooting. This was from just yesterday, and it goes into a bit more detail as to his background. Because most of the reporting I heard basically said that his background there was like a big question mark on his background, or not a big question mark. Most people didn't know much about him. But according to this, Austin, Texas, a 2022 divorce filing in Bexar County is giving more details about the man accused of killing 3 people and injuring 13 others. I think it's risen up to 19 people who were injured, but it's definitely more than 13 from what I last heard. 13 others in the shooting at downtown Austin bar over the weekend. The filing accuses shooting suspect Ndiaga Diagne of cruel treatment towards his ex-wife, with the divorce resulting in him losing custody of his 2 children. Diagne's ex-wife filed for divorce in 2022, almost 10 years after the couple had married. The filing shows that the couple had not been living together since 2019, so they were separated for 3 years. Under grounds for divorce, his ex-wife claimed that Diagne, I hope I'm pronouncing that properly, was guilty of cruel treatment towards her of a nature that renders further living together insupportable. Hopefully, this will go into a bit more detail. In a response letter filed with the court, Diagne said he totally disagreed and, quite frankly, felt insulted by the many false statements in the filing, and that he categorically rejected her many lies. Let me make this a little larger in case there's any issue seeing this. This should be good right here. Let's see how it came out. There we go. I think that should be good right there. But again, I'll keep reading. Little Twitter or X posts. New court docs reveal that man accused of killing 3 people during the mass shooting in Austin, Texas, Sunday morning was accused by his ex-wife of cruel treatment, which I just read. And here's the part that I'm see who wrote the disagree. This is Diagne. His part of the statement disagrees. Quite frankly, feel insulted by false statements in the filing. The only reason is because of out of care and mercy for my about to be ex-wife, because she knows full culture and religion. We do not need a certificate to be husband and wife. So I think this is another demonstration that he's Muslim, because obvious common sense would tell you that he's Muslim, but I was doing a search on X and they were saying that it hasn't been proven with 100% clarity that he's a Muslim. Let's continue. Why I am brought here is incomprehensible, since she has taken the kids out of their school without my consent. As of now, I have no idea where they are. She doesn't allow me to talk to them on the phone, let alone see said Diagne in his letter. At the bottom of the letter, Diagne gives an address of Pflugerville on Kickapoo Cavern Drive, which was searched by law enforcement on Sunday. At the scene, ATF agents could be seen carrying out boxes of what appeared to be evidence. In September 2022, the court entered a default judgment for the divorce, giving sole custody to the ex-wife and supervised visits to Diagne after he failed to appear for a rescheduled hearing. 3 people, including the gunman, were killed. And that's something I always hate. I hate when they include the gunman in the people who were killed. He's separate. Don't include him. Make sure, say 3 individuals, three civilians, and one gun and the gunman were killed. Make it a clear point. They did here, but I've seen other situations where, especially if the gunman shoots himself, they'll put them in the category of the people killed by the gunman, which is kind of silly, I think. And 14 others were wounded in the mass shooting outside a bar in Austin's bustling 6th Street entertainment district early Sunday morning that authorities said may have ties to terrorism. And I don't think there's a may about it. I think it's about as clear a statement as you could possibly say, considering he was wearing a T-shirt with the property of Allah statement on it. And I think he had another shirt underneath it with the Iranian flag, and he might have had he had a Quran in his vehicle, if I recall correctly. The article goes on to say a 3rd victim later passed away after being taken off life support. 2 others remain critically injured as of Monday. It began as a call to police around 1:40 a.m. about a man shooting at Buford's. When police arrived at the scene, they confronted a man with a gun and returned fire, ending his life, the suspect said Austin Police Chief Lisa Davis on Sunday. The gunman was identified as Diagne, a naturalized citizen born in Senegal who lived in Pflugerville. He was reportedly caught in images wearing a sweatshirt that read "Property of Allah" and had been wearing a T-shirt underneath with an Iranian flag. So I know some folks are trying to claim and state that they don't know if it was terrorism related. I think it's pretty easy to come to that conclusion. I don't think that's much of a stretch at all. And this whole situation is crazy. And I've said it for many a year that nothing good, and it's nothing I've coined, but I've heard it said, and I've said it myself, nothing good happens after midnight. I know you want to go out and enjoy your time, but that's when the freaks come out, as the old Houdini song said back in the 80s. And that's when the idiots come out. That's when drama goes down, y'all. And I know Austin is more of a progressive type of city, but you're still in Texas, which is largely more red. You got to be packing. You got to be packing when you're out and about these days. You don't want to be caught with your pants down. I carry my gun with me basically everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, you can almost guarantee you that I'm carrying. Obviously, I can't take it to the airport. I mean, there are even ways around that. But wherever I go, I'm packing. Why did he do it? Jill posted here. He did it for Allah. That's pretty clear. And that's another point I want to bring up is we have a lot of these people, and it's being referred to as the woke right. Your Candace Owens, your Tucker Carlson's, your Nick Fuentes's, and I forget what they call those twins, light-skinned brothers. You got a lot of these guys that are so anti-Israel that they have lost touch or they never knew the level of danger that Islam brings to our country. There's just no getting around it. No getting around it. I mean, it's gotten so bad with Tucker and especially Candace, or not especially Candace, but with Tucker and Candace. It's gotten so bad with those two that they used to point out all the issues that Islam brings. And obviously this isn't every Muslim, clearly. This isn't every Muslim. But when you look at the history, and this is the part that's most frustrating to me, the history of Islam is a violent, radical, dangerous religion. And it's spread primarily throughout the world through violence, especially when you look at history. And a lot of the nonsense and the foolishness that we're seeing nowadays is largely because of that. Now, I'm not sitting over here trying to carry water for Israel as a whole, but considering where they are on the map and the fact that they're surrounded by nations that would want to see them dead, largely because of religious reasons, because they're Jewish. Islam, if you read the Quran, if you read the Hadith literature, they hate Jews and Christians. It's not necessarily your neighbor who's a Muslim or the westernized Muslim who was raised here. It's not necessarily him or her who feels that way, but as an ideology, that's what Islam promotes. And if you don't know that, you haven't done your history. You need to read it, and you need to read it in context. Which is why you see Christians persecuted in Islamic nations time and time again. And when you look at the Candace Owenses and the Tucker Carlsons, as I mentioned, who seem to have completely forgotten all the stuff that they learned and knew about Islam. It's just really frustrating for me. And sadly, it's catching on. And I think it's just a big propaganda game to some degree. I think there are many on the political left who are pulling the strings of some of these people. Of course, everyone talks about Israel and AIPAC and all their donations and things like that. But most people seem to be completely oblivious to Qatar and these other Arabic nations and Arabic organizations who are sending all types of money to influencers, to colleges, to political parties in order to gain influence. It's just as bad, if not worse. So don't be taken for a fool when it comes to these issues here and who's influencing who. It happens on all sides, and it happens and it comes from people who have many different agendas. But let's continue on to the next video. I want to talk about, okay, let me see here. Let's go here. I want to talk about, let me back up. Sorry about this. I'm trying to see what topic I want to talk about. Got a whole bunch of interesting. Here we go. There was a recent incident. Let me switch things up a bit. There's a recent incident where three young men, three teenagers, not even teenagers, I think the youngest one is 12 years old, where three juveniles are being charged as adults for heinous crimes. And I'm going to beat around the bush a little bit because of social media, in particularly YouTube. They'll be quick to take my content down. But I'm going to share with you this video, and then we'll discuss some of the details. But they were charged with a heinous crime of the sexual nature to another young girl. And here in this video, you have a few of the parents who are obviously don't want to think the worst of their kids. I get it. But sometimes you have to understand what your kid's capable of. Let's check it out.
The court was brief today, but afterwards, emotions were running high with one of the families of the boys being charged as an adult.
It's not true.
That's the mother of 12-year-old Josiah Jones screaming at anyone who would listen after today's court hearing as her son faces charges as an adult in a case involving the rape of a 12-year-old girl.
I don't care if they get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, 100 years. Guess what? I'm going to always feel like as a mother, as a woman, I'm going to always feel like it's not enough.
The girl's mother speaking to Local 10 recently saying she just wants justice for her daughter. According to police, the girl was leaving a friend's home when she encountered the boys near a community garden in Overtown. Investigators allege 13-year-old Nelson Nunez raped her, while 12-year-old Josiah Jones and Xavier Tyson, who was 14 at the time, restrained her. Police say Jones put rocks in her mouth to stop her from screaming. All three boys are being charged as adults.
What are your thoughts on a juvenile being charged as an adult? Where do you think there are any barriers? When do you think a kid is old enough to be responsible for his actions? Now, I'm thinking back in my life when I was a kid, for I would say at least 10 years old, I really knew what I was doing, and I knew when I was doing bad. But people may have different opinions, so let me know what your thoughts are. When do you think it's good for a kid to be charged as an adult? What age range? Or would you say it depends on the individual child?
Victim says it went on for about 30 minutes, and the boys stopped when they heard her father calling her name. In court today, attorneys for two of the three boys arrested in this case formally entered not guilty pleas.
The mere fact that they stopped when they heard the father calling the girl's name, that should tell you all you need to know. They knew they knew the whole time what they were doing was wrong.
Requested jury trials and invoked discovery requiring prosecutors to turn over all evidence. They also argued their clients, Jones and Nunez, should not be in adult jail.
At this point, you have a 13-year-old kid sitting in jail, and me and I think my co-counsel, the lawyer for the co-defendant, we both will be fighting hard to get our clients out of jail.
As for Jones's father, he tells us the allegations against his son are not true.
A young black man that was visiting Miami. It was with the wrong two kids, a 15 and a 14-year-old. My son is 12 years old and has a father that takes care of him. These allegations are bogus.
I want to say this, that just for the sake of fairness, they haven't been convicted. They haven't been found guilty. So we do live in a society where it's innocent until proven guilty. So I want to give the father some grace. But oftentimes, in the majority of cases, if a case goes this far, there's some truth behind it. Again, it's not always the case. There are people who get wrongfully accused. No, you can't deny that. But and if something like that happened with one of my kids, I'm gonna really ask them some difficult questions, some very challenging and deeply probing questions. And I think I'd be able to be honest enough to say, yeah, I think my kid did it, or I think he didn't do it. And then, because look where he went. Look where he went automatically, a young black man. I don't give a damn what color you are. If you're guilty, or if there's enough evidence, if there's enough probable cause to where they can push a case forward, and it looks like you might be guilty, you got to go through the process, my man. And his skin color is irrelevant. But I have a sinking feeling that this case is going to turn into a Central Park 5 or one of these cases where race is going to play a larger factor than it should. Again, we're talking about innocent until proven guilty. We don't know the details quite yet.
Now, the judge did schedule a status hearing for March 18th. We'll continue to stay on top of this case and update you with any new developments. For now, reporting live in Miami, I'm Isabella Martin, Local 10 News.
I want to ask the question again. Do you think you could be honest enough to say your kid is guilty, or at least that you think he's guilty? I know that's your child. I know, of course, you love him. At least I hope you do. But do you think you could be honest enough to say, I think my child is guilty? Would you force them to admit what they did? I don't know, but I'm definitely going to do what I can to follow this case just to see where it goes, because I'm very curious as to what happens here. All right, let's go to something. We have a few hot details to discuss here. This one here I thought was very interesting. And I think it goes into, I said like 5 years ago. And I might be a bit off, or a lot off, I should say. But about 5 years ago, I said I believe that in I think I said like in 5 years. So I'm not we're not quite there yet. But I was under the impression that Joe Rogan was going to make some claim or some statement of faith in the years to come. He's definitely softened his stance when it comes to Christianity. The man was mocking Christianity 10, 15 plus years ago, but he's in a different state. He's actually attending church pretty consistently from what I've heard. He loves and enjoys the teachings of Jesus. So continue to keep Joe in your prayers, y'all. Pray that he would ultimately place his faith in Christ and truly be born again. But this was a really interesting conversation that he had with Steve-O, formerly of Jackass fame from the old MTV prank show, if you want to call it that. I thought it was ridiculous. These guys, all they did was just hurt themselves. Pretty crazy. But I saw a little clip of this, but this is an extended conversation that he had as they discuss this current transgender movement. You're going to want to hear this. Very, very interesting.
Do you know who's killed more people than ICE this year? Trans shooters. Do you know the majority of these high school shootings have been transgender people?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Talk to this transgender person, like, hey, can I run something by you? And I spoke with them. They described to me a level of oppression that genuinely fucking broke my heart. They said, hey, let me tell you, like, I am not allowed to use the bathroom at my own place of work. We've got like politics.
That's not true. They're just not allowed to use the bathroom. It doesn't align with their biological sex.
Okay.
But you got to realize they're not all, listen, I genuinely think there's people that feel like they are in the wrong biological sex.
Sure.
Right. But there's also people that are fucking perverts, and they have a thing called autogynephilia. And what that is they get a turn on by pretending to be a woman. They get excited by it, and they want to be around women, and they're creeps. And so you give them a fucking Willy Wonka golden ticket to go into the women's locker room and the women's bathroom and stare at women and pretend you're a woman when you're just a crazy man and you're actually into women.
Okay.
That's real too, man.
I don't doubt.
You know, a few years ago, and I can't say I've watched every Joe Rogan podcast. I watched a few of them. I've mainly watched clips. Every now and then he'll come out with one that I have to watch all the way through, or I plan on watching all the way through, and I'll watch a large portion of it. But he seems to have shifted his perspective on the transgender movement. I think he's still very sympathetic and caring about these individuals, and I think anyone should, especially those of us who are Christ followers. I think we should model sympathy for individuals who are struggling with their individual sin. And I'm talking those who struggle, and even those who have whose hearts are hardened and thoroughly believe that they are trapped in the wrong body. I think that's a true mental disorder, and it's still considered a mental disorder, which enables them to get the surgery, which is supposedly able to help them I don't know how all that works ultimately. From what I've gathered and researched and studied, the suicide rate is still equally as high, even post surgery. But it seems that Joe has taken a bit of a more hard line. He's still sympathetic to these people, but I think now he has a more nuanced and a broader perspective. He understands there are some people who truly believe that this is what they're supposed to be, but yet at the same time, you got people who are chomping at the bit to take advantage of being able to go into a woman's bathroom and do God knows what. And sadly, we're in a society right now where the evils that some of these people do gets suppressed, and they don't make headline news, they don't make top stories, because there's a much bigger and broader agenda that the LGBT radicals don't want you to know about. They're so hell-bent on moving forward, pushing their movement forward, their ideology forward, that they're not even willing to acknowledge the crimes that some of these people commit.
That's real, and I know that it's a super complex, nuanced thing. And
but here's what's not complex. What is your chromosomes?
Right.
Okay. This is the same thing for competing. Right. All these fucking mental gymnastics that seemingly intelligent people do to justify biological males competing with females.
Oh, I'm with it. I don't think anybody's
It's the same
that.
thing.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Right.
And especially as speaking as a man who has daughters, like there are creeps. And if you give a creep, and I'm not saying all trans people are creeps,
right,
but a lot of these fucking people that are in trouble for going into women's bathrooms dressed as a woman with a fucking beard and a heart on are just that. They're creeps.
Right, okay.
They're crazy men. And these crazy men, their entire life, they would get beaten up for that. And now all of a sudden they have to be accepted.
Man, that's really well put. Our society has shifted so far to the extreme that something that would have been vilified, and of course there were extremes, people who were beaten up. Now, if you go in a woman's restroom and you're over here doing all kinds of disgusting things and you're a man and somebody puts their hands on you, I get it. I'm not celebrating it, but I get it. If you're caught doing something disgusting, if I catch you doing something like that with my ladies, especially like with my daughter, bro, it's just going to be, it ain't going to be nice. Let me just tell you, any of my daughters for that matter. But it's just not going to be nice. But there were times also where these people who are trans were hurt simply because they're trans. And I don't think that's cool either. But if you go in there with ill intent, you open the door to God knows what. And Joe's going to take a ton of heat for this from these clowns out there, these radicals out there who think that any statement, any pushback to their beloved LGBT community needs to be attacked. This is the kind of stuff that ultimately got Charlie shot. Let's continue.
So you've got two things going on at the same time.
For sure.
You've got people with gender dysphoria that genuinely wish they were a woman or genuinely wish they were a man. And by the way, it's men that are the problem. No one gives a fuck about trans men going into the men's bathroom. Come on in. Who cares?
Right.
Who cares? Oh, a girl's going to shit next to you? Or what is she going to do? She's going to pee out of a funnel?
Right,
what is she going to do? Like,
hey,
no one's going to get hurt.
I'm not arguing
no
with
one's
you
going to get hurt.
Yeah, excellent point. If a woman who believes she's a man goes into the men's restroom, most guys aren't going to even give her a double take, especially if she's in the process or looking like a dude. Most guys, we don't look at each other like that. That's like against the rules when you go into a bathroom. You don't look at a dude in the face when you guys are at the urinal. We just don't do that. And the fact, and Joe hits it right on the head, they are not a threat. If she went in there because she's a pervert and she wanted to do something to a guy, what's she going to do? Whereas on the flip side, a man A physical man goes in, a biological dude, and I don't even think I should have to say biological, but just to make my case a bit more clear for anyone who's listening. But if a biological male goes into a woman's restroom, he can be dangerous. And I think that's where the biggest issue is. I think it's wrong all the way around. But in this particular point, I agree with Joe 100%.
This is the problem. When you allow perverts to have this hall pass to go into women's locker rooms and bathrooms.
Yeah.
So you can't say you're not allowed to use the bathroom where you work. That's not true. You're just not allowed to use the women's room where other women are in there because you're not a woman. And I know you wish you were a woman or whatever's going on, but you're not.
Know what? You make a very, very good point.
If you're a woman, talk to most women about this. And it's, unless they're insanely captured by this woke ideology where they can't see reality and the fact that perverts are still a real fucking thing.
Yeah.
And this loophole, you've given loopholes. Like there's men in prison. I think it's like 47 biological males in California are housed in women's prisons. Some of them are sex offenders.
It wasn't that long ago. If you look back through my content, I made a video where I spoke about a male who has gender dysphoria, and I think it was in California, I'm pretty sure of that, was sent to a woman's prison and ended up assaulting physically, if you know what I mean, a female inmate. And at first they tried to cover it up and hide it, but then it ultimately ended up coming out. That's a real thing. And these idiots out there who are so, as Joe said, they're so into this woke culture, this woke ideology, that they are blinded. And I think also you have those who are afraid to speak up. You have a lot of feminists out there who know that no male should be competing against women in any way, shape, or form, or shouldn't be going into female bathrooms. They know it's not right, but they're too afraid to speak up. And I think that issue is more prevalent than not.
Some of them in Canada. There's a guy in Canada that they had to pay for his boob job while he was in jail for being a sex offender, and they put him in a women's prison. Yeah.
I'm not arguing with
There's men who have pretended to be women, gone into women's prison, had sex with women and impregnated them.
Mm-hmm.
There's men who have sexually assaulted and raped women in prison that are pretending to be women with functional dicks.
I just thought, man, I heard what they had to say about, politicians trying to put them in internment camps and
who's doing that? What politicians are saying they should be put in internment camps?
There was some kind of
there might be one kook out there that's saying that to try to get attention. There's no movement to try to put transgender people in internment camps.
And this is so crazy. I'm listening to Steve-O, and maybe dude took too many blows to the head during his jackass days. I don't know. But all these leftist talking points, they're trying to put him in an internment, put trans people and gay people in internment camps, and he can't use the bathroom at his job. That is BS. There were even movements to say that they would have a gender neutral bathroom they can use. And this was in North Carolina, I think, a few years back. It was when the NBA was about to do the All-Star game in North Carolina, and they ended up moving. This was the height, right around Obergefell, when gay marriage was legalized. And there were people who were talking about using the bathrooms that they want to use, and everybody was afraid to say something offensive to the LGBT mob. And they even... I think the main thing was protecting women's restrooms, in particularly in school and maybe stores. And they even talked about having a gender neutral location bathroom. And they were like, no, they didn't want that. This is the kind of garbage. And you got this dude out there, Steve-O, with a fairly large platform still, I believe, who's going out there and just spewing these nonsensical points. And he doesn't have any idea what he's talking about. And people make claims with no evidence. And I guess nowadays, if someone says something, especially if they're part of a marginalized group, you have to believe them. It's ridiculous.
Okay, well then I'll land on this.
Do you know who's killed more people than ICE this year? Trans shooters. Do you know the majority of these high school shootings have been transgender people?
I did not know that.
Yeah. Like at the end of the day, we have to understand that, like, what is more important? One person's feelings or the safety of all these women? And the safety of all these women is much more important.
I think you can almost guarantee you, if it hasn't happened yet, Steve-O is going to go on an apology tour. Now, he may not go on multiple shows apologizing, but his stance is so shaky, there's no foundation underneath him. His worldview is just whatever he's told by the progressive types, that coming off of Joe's show and him agreeing with Joe, he's going to get all types of heat on X or wherever he's at, Instagram. There are going to be articles written about him. Celebrities are going to be crying. And the dude's going to come out and apologize. I'm willing to put money on it. And I don't even bet. But I'm willing to bet that I'd be willing to bet, if I was a betting man, that he'll come out and he'll apologize and be like, oh, I'm not going to go on Joe Rogan anymore, or something stupid like that.
So you got to be kind to people, but also you got to have rules. There's a reason why there's a woman's room and a men's room. It's because some men are fucking creeps. And if you allow those creeps to just put on a dress, and again, I'm not saying all trans people are like this at all, but you can't have that loophole. You can't. Let's like can't have an open border. Doesn't mean that all immigrants are murderers, and you don't think that either, right? But some people that sneak across the border, if you don't check, are going to be murderers. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
So you have to have a fucking closed border to check, and you have to have a gender border too.
It's what I always say, time and time again. For those who, and there was one dude, and you know you are if you're watching this on Facebook, guy I used to work with at the jail. I had posted something not that long ago talking about the borders, and then I tried to engage with a reasonable dialogue with him about borders. He was like, I don't live in fear. So I asked him, do you lock your doors? Do you lock your car doors? Do you lock your door when you leave home? Why? Because there are some people out there who may have ill will. Doesn't mean everybody. It doesn't even mean the majority. But you secure your property because you love and care about what you worked hard to earn, or you care about what you've created, or you want to protect your family. That's why we have walls and doors and locks and security doors and all the different things, alarms on our car, alarms on our home, Ring cameras. It's because we're reasonable and we understand that there are some people out there who have ill intent and who may have ill will and who may want to do harm. We have legal immigration because we want to control and monitor who comes in. And that's just makes sense. It's nothing irrational. And I was trying to have a conversation with the former coworker, and he wasn't even willing to engage. Because I was telling him, if you don't care about the borders, why don't you just leave your door open? Why don't you leave your home unsecured? Why don't you leave your car unlocked? Some of these people are too irrational to even put two and two together and come and go to the logical conclusion of their worldview. If you think the borders should be left wide open, see how long that lasts. Why don't you practice that at home? And how many of these illegals have you allowed into your home? Or how many homeless people have you allowed into your home because you care about those who are struggling and the oppressed? And I think we should individually, but that doesn't mean we do it at the detriment of our own safety, of our own financial security. That's just stupid. But Joe's making an excellent point here.
Yeah, well, God damn it. And my only takeaway from my experience that I was relating to you is that it made me feel compassionate.
Well, that's
and
nice.
I want to be a good.
That's good. A better reason would be it's fucking stupid. You get a boob job. Don't do it. No one's gonna like you more. I think you're cool because you got a boob job at 52.
I'm glad. I'm glad. That
How old are you now?
51.
Yeah, that's too old for a boob job.
Yeah.
Even if you're a girl.
Stop.
Unless you just got divorced, you're like, I need some new dick. I gotta go.
I'm really glad that I didn't do it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But if you were here with two giant boobs, I'd be like, I don't know what to say to this.
Wow, that's too funny, y'all. That's too funny. But man, I think I'm constantly seeing a bit of a shift. I don't know with Joe. I don't know. Again, like I started off with, and I'm going to end with, we're not done yet. But as I start off with, keep Joe in your prayers, y'all. The Lord, the Lord's probably working on that man. All right. There are a couple of videos I want to share with y'all. This here is crazy. This one here is crazy. There's a video game, I guess, that's out, that's got a lot of people upset. At least that's what I heard. I don't know. But the title of the video game is Karen. And you know that name doesn't have any kind of a good or positive connotation these days. But you got to check this out.
Sorry, we're all out of half and half.
You can only do an exchange.
No, breadsticks are extra.
I'm sorry, ma'am. That's our policy.
Let me guess, she lives in Austin or maybe Minneapolis, Minnesota, Portland. Yeah, y'all. I don't know who's upset. I would assume maybe some leftists out there, maybe Kamala Harris supporters or Joe Biden voters. I don't know, but yeah, I think that's kind of entertaining. I'm guessing the object of the game is to do the most damage and destroy the most because you're perpetually offended. It would seem to be the case. Let me know what you think about that game. That's pretty wild. And I think it's pretty funny that somebody out there finally decided to have a sense of humor. I don't know. Pretty nuts. And I want to share with y'all, where's this at here? I thought this was absolutely, let me see if I can find this. A series of clips. If you're not familiar, let me know if you're familiar with Heather McDonald. She wrote the book, The War on Cops. She's taken a lot of heat over the more recent years because of her strong stances on diversity. She wrote The War on Cops. She wrote a book called The Diversity Delusion. Excellent. Both of those books are excellent. And she has a couple of videos where she discusses crime, things like that. And she's not politically correct, which makes me appreciate her all the more. I think she makes some excellent points in both of these videos, and we'll discuss it. We'll discuss them as they go.
Preposterous situation that we've been living through since the George Floyd race riots of not being able to shop in a drugstore because everything is behind plexiglass. And so we're moving even more so online because we're not willing to arrest for shoplifting. Prosecutors are saying we're not going to prosecute shoplifting because that has a disparate impact on Black criminals. And so we've had these progressive prosecutors, whether it's Alvin Bragg in Manhattan or George Gascon in Los Angeles, who was voted out of office, or Pamela Price in Oakland, Alameda County, California, voted out of office, or Kim Fox in Chicago. All these people have said, we're not going to prosecute shoplifting, turnstile jumping, resisting arrest, which is really pernicious.
I think years of criminal reporting and studies shows that the whole broken window policing, you see small crimes, you deal with violators, small violators like vandalism, shoplifting, traffic violations, even in some areas. You police those areas, it kind of forces everyone to police themselves. People want to do better because if you let small crimes go, it gives the criminal minded out there, it convinces them that it's okay to do whatever they want to do. And I think Rudy Giuliani really took that to another level in New York in the 90s when the homicide rate was through the roof. And you see what happens in a lot of these cities that want to legalize drug use and legalize possession of drug paraphernalia and legalize burglary, shoplifting, or make it a very high barrier for it to become a crime because they feel like minorities were wrongfully targeted. And what happens in all these communities? As time goes on, they always end up flipping the script because you just can't let people do whatever they want to do. I think people who make some of these idiotic laws, they go into it with a flawed worldview. They go into it with this socialist Marxist worldview that basically says that the only reason people are bad is because of capitalism or because of poverty or things like that, not knowing that is the natural sinful state of mankind that we're born into. And that's the Christian worldview, which is another reason why the Christian worldview is the true worldview, because it makes more sense of what we see in society.
Because it will have a disparate impact on Black criminals. So, in fact, we're not over prosecuting, we're not over policing, we are under policing and under prosecuting. The result of this is a society that does not govern itself, in which there's no security of property, there's no security of persons. We are refusing to put criminals in jail in New York City.
Resisting arrest would normally land you on Rikers Island, but not anymore. Just days on the job, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is changing what crimes he will prosecute.
We need to reserve our justice system for real public safety challenges.
We lived through this.
So resisting a police officer, resisting the figure of law and order in your society, saying that I'm not going to go to jail, I'm resisting those individuals, those officers, isn't a real crime? Come on, man. Once these criminals realize that they can get away with that, God only knows what they're going to think they can get away with. I'm telling you, we are seeing the downfall of New York and a lot of these other cities. And in my honest opinion, even though I feel bad for a lot of those citizens in there who may have voted a different way, I honestly believe that they're going to get what their just desserts. That's how I feel.
The people that are committing assaults on subways, on the streets, have rap sheets that are endless. They've been picked up again and again and again. And the reason they're not going to prison is because doing so as a system will have a disparate impact on Black criminals. We've decided it's better not to incarcerate and to prosecute than to do so in a colorblind fashion if that has a disparate impact on Black criminals. The victims for that primarily are going to be Black themselves, the people that live in the inner city that have to live with these criminals who are not off the streets, but it affects all of us.
And that's the part that is probably the most frustrating part for me, is the fact that the citizens in these communities, because this isn't happening in these nice areas because they just won't allow it. This is primarily happening in urban cities, in the hood, where these progressive politicians and DAs and whatever their title is, they come in with all these ridiculous laws, and then they go to their home in the suburbs, and they never have to deal with the consequences of their their actions, of their policies. But those people who live in the hood, who are just trying to live their life, they're trying to do the best they can to get ahead. They might be on a fixed budget or whatever the case may be. They're the ones who are struggling. When you take away guns in some of these communities, and yet you have criminals just wreaking havoc all over the place. And there's another thing. When you look at these places that have been governed by Democrats for decades, dang near centuries in some instances, or dang near a century, and you see nothing coming from it for minorities, it just makes you wonder, like, how deep is this indoctrination? How brainwashed are people? You can't even honestly look and examine and ask the question, what have these people done to make my life or any of the people living in these communities any better? But for some reason, we cannot, or some of these folks cannot see that these Democrats haven't done anything for them. They can't see it, or they just refuse to see it. All right. Let me share this video here. I think
of all police shootings.
Okay, this is the main one I wanted to share with y'all. And this is near and dear to my heart as a retired law enforcement. I thought that she nailed it so succinctly, so perfectly. Let me know what you think.
You could get rid of all police shootings of civilians tomorrow, and it would have virtually no effect on the Black death by homicide rate.
Listen to the details and the numbers, y'all, because these aren't BS numbers. These are legit numbers. Let me back it up and start all over again. Hold on.
You could get rid of all police shootings of civilians tomorrow, and it would have virtually no effect on the Black death by homicide rate. Right. Blacks between the ages of 10 and 25 die of gun homicide at 25 times the rate of whites in that age category.
25 times the rate. 25 times the rate. When have you ever heard this, y'all? Like, tell me, when have you ever heard this? Now, if you listen to my channel, especially when I first started, I used to address these issues all the time. But when have you ever heard about this? In the mainstream, the political left don't want you to even talk about it.
And they're not being killed by the cops. They're being killed by other blacks. And nobody wants to talk about it. We're supposed to believe that we're all racist. It's the media that's racist. They don't give a damn about Black lives. They don't give a damn about the dozens of blacks who are killed by homicide every single day. That's more than all white and Hispanic homicide victims combined, even though, as we said, blacks are 13% of the population. None, virtually none of those Black homicide victims gets covered. We are not saying their names because they're killed by other blacks, and we don't want to talk about that.
Now, they're discussed locally on local news, it'll come out. But as far as anything national, it's like a blip in the radar. You hardly ever hear it. It has to be something heinous in order for it to make national news. And then even then, you have to be careful. Oh, you don't want to offend anybody, or you'll get called a racist for even talking about it. When someone brings up the crime rate in Chicago or Baltimore or Georgia or in New Orleans or in California, oh, you're a racist for bringing that up. Now, how irrational is that? Now, could somebody be racist by bringing that up? Yeah. But if someone actually brings up the crime rate in a lot of these inner cities and talks about the inordinate number of blacks who are gunned down and murdered, gunned down and killed, let me watch my language here on these YouTube streets, each and every day, every week, every year, when we make up such a small percentage of the population, but for some reason we're not supposed to talk about it. But if you do talk about it, you're considered a racist. It's idiotic. And if you don't talk about it, they say you don't care.
So the Ferguson effect says when you demonize the cops back off. And guess what happens? When the cops stop making stops, when they stop looking at hot spots where shootings have happened and they back off, criminals get emboldened and more Black lives are taken. That's what happened after the Ferguson riots, after the George Floyd race riots in 2020. We had an even greater meltdown. We had every single American elite institution declaring it was racist to the core. And the cops were, of course, as usual, one of the main targets of this. 2020 saw the largest one-year increase in homicide in this nation's history, 29%, and thousands more Black lives were taken. That's what happens when you demonize the cops.
It's unpopular. Some may say it's offensive, but these are the cold, hard facts, y'all. This information is out there. Go to the FBI Uniform Crime Report. They put one out every year, every 2 years, like every year and a half, as far as a more full report. You have there's the National Crime Victim Witness Survey. There's all kinds of places you can get information that can give you a clear picture of the crime rate and how it impacts different cultures, different segments of our society. But again, you're not supposed to talk about that because Black folks might get their feelings hurt or might get offended or might get targeted more. Now, if there's a problem within a certain segment of our culture, don't you think it should be addressed regardless of who it is, whether the person looks like me or not? It's ridiculous. But hey, fam, I appreciate y'all for joining me today. Give me your thoughts in the comments section or in the chat. Let me know what you think. What should be done in a situation like this? Should we keep quiet, not say anything? Or should crime be dealt with regardless of who it comes from and who commits it? Let me know what you think. But as always, in the meantime, stay safe. God bless. Make sure you join the conversation. Take care.